Welcome to the Open Era Podcast. My name is Devang. I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Simon Bushell. Bush, the U.S. Open is well underway, the final slam of the year, and I think it's safe to say we've already seen some pretty batshit things happen in New York. Things that I'm like, what? What is going on? Feels like a bit of a strange slam so far. We're 1 week through play. As we're recording this, of course, tennis is going on all over the courts in New York. Ben Shelton doing quite well, Bush, on this Sunday afternoon. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing really well. It's been a really enjoyable US Open. There's been some shocks, there's been some drama, and as always in the sport, there's been a lot of nonsense. So I've actually really enjoyed this week.
Yeah, am I right here? Is it safe to say this has been a bit stranger than usual for a slam? Or maybe I'm reading too much into it, with it being kind of like the end of summer, end of tennis seasons in some ways.
It's a full moon in the sport of tennis, is it not? That kind of thing. I think it's been a little more strange than usual. I think perhaps just the fact that it is New York and all the things that come with being there and the heightened spotlight and perhaps the increased media presence as well. That makes for it all being slightly more provocative / weird. But in general, I think there's just been a lot of stuff that's been going on.
There has been. And we'll get to maybe some more of the second week stuff and predictions and who we like going forward. But Bush, plenty to go over from the week that was. Let's start with Maria Sakkari maybe, though.
Yeah, Maria Sakkari out in round one. And this story in itself had a bunch of weird stuff in it, of course. Anyone who was watching the match had Maria Sakkari complaining about someone smoking weed in the crowd and complaining about the umpire, which is quite amusing. I think the flip side of that is, though, that she's had a pretty awful season and broke down during the press conference, was in tears, and was quoted as saying that she has hit rock bottom in terms of her tennis. This is a bad loss, obviously. He doesn't need me to say that in round one to go out in the way that she did to Masarova. But in general, Dev, it's been a pretty dreadful year for her.
Yeah, never a good sign when Fox News picks up a story about you. And of course, they picked up this weed story, which I found hilarious. Like, how many tennis stories are gracing their pages? I can't imagine it's many, but this one did. You can decide why that was on your own time. But yeah, this is, I don't know, Bush. I think this is a bit of I'd say a more extreme version maybe of the Felix Auger-Aliassime situation, where it looks like some time away from the game could be the best thing at the very least, or stepping away for maybe a month if you can. But I feel like Felix could definitely benefit from that. I feel like Maria Sakkari's been in this spiral a bit longer though, Bush, and it goes back to some of the setup she's tried to include in her team, including people to work on the mental side of things. It didn't feel like she was in a great place after this loss, and it's totally understandable. I don't think anyone wants to lose the way she did that early, being the 8th seed. But yeah, it feels kind of like a cop-out to say she should take a break, but also perhaps she should take a break.
I think that's probably reasonable. I think one of the things that we saw during the Breakpoint series and so the strain that it took on her and her camp and everything. There's also another side of this, which is just to maintain the height, to stay at the top of the sport when you're being chased, or you've had such a good season or 2 seasons the way that she did, and is just feeling consistently the pressure of people trying to chase her down in the way that it has done. It's just a tough situation, and I think we wish for her to get back to winning ways as soon as possible. But for the time being, Dev, some of these wins are starting to stack up.
Yeah, and that ranking is gonna start showing its worst for wear, and it'll only get tougher from here. So earnestly mean this in the sense that I hope she finds her game again and is back to feeling confident on the court. But speaking of people who've taken breaks, Caroline Wozniacki became a mom, did a whole lot of other stuff off the court, came back to tennis, Bush, and now ho-hum, she's beating some very good players along the way to the second week in New York.
Doesn't look like she's missed a beat really either, does she?
It's scary as hell. Like, what?
And if you read interviews with her and sort of the way that she's talking about this return to the sport, and her saying that she was just randomly hitting with her dad after the birth of her second child and realizing, oh, wait, I can still do this. Wait, I'm still a really good tennis player. And then to take that and to put the dedication and the training in to get back to this level, if there's one thing that tennis loves more than anything else, it's a good comeback story. The one thing also they do love to talk about is body image and attire as well. And Caroline Wozniacki got the brunt of that this week as well, Dev.
Yeah, the full gamut. I mean, look at this run so far. She beat a qualifier in the first round, but then to go Kvitova, Jen Brady, and now Coco Gauff, that's pretty impressive, especially Bush. I thought the Jen Brady match, because Jen Brady herself after a layoff has looked really, really good and showed why we had such high hopes for her in terms of the matches she produces and how fun she is to watch. I thought that was an excellent display. I mean, game-wise, though, looks quite similar, Simon, to the player that we came to know and the player that ascended to the number one spot in the sport.
Definitely, yeah. And her ranking, I think, will be inside of the world's top 100 if she wins against Coco Gauff, which is quite the achievement considering I think she started before she came back to the tour with her ranking about 700 in the world. So it's quite impressive to see her make this ascent in such a short space of time. I'm really fascinated to see, obviously, if she gets, it looks like she is going to commit to being a full-time pro again and trying to play as many tournaments as possible and do the circuit. I'm really curious to see where she ends up and what this comeback looks like for her across the board, simply because she is a Grand Slam champion. Does she have the game in 2023 to challenge for another one? I would say no, but stranger things have happened.
Yeah, man, I don't know. Like I these people are built different. We mentioned this a lot on this show. They're not like us in many ways, but the grind aspect of tennis does not seem super appealing to most, I would say, probably, Simon, like the constant churn and travel. And I doubt she will return to that. But I wonder if there's a middle ground there where she can get the best of both worlds. But she looks excellent. Speaking of Coco Gauff, I mentioned the weird week that it's been in New York. I think Coco Gauff's had a pretty weird week, Simon.
Yeah, there's been some ups and downs, is there not? So just a brief, I guess, foray into what's happened during the very short space of 6 days or 5 days that it's been since we have seen this tournament start. So Gauff got to meet the Obamas, both the former president and his wife. We had the conversation/event with Carlos Alcaraz, where she, I think, had a bunch of really fun quotes, including the one about how just seeing Carlos Alcaraz smiling on court made me realize that I should probably do that as well. You know, easier said than done, but that's quite nice. She incorrectly gave Jess Pegula a hug at the end of I think it was a second round match in women's doubles where she didn't know the score. That was very funny and made a bunch of people laugh. She had both Beyonce and Justin Bieber watching, and this caused another set of quotes and another set of interesting altercations within the press conference. Justin Bieber, by the way, just what on earth was the dude wearing? Incredible.
I didn't see this, so I have to find it. But I'm just glad to see him back in the public eye. It's been a tough few years for JB.
And then finally, the altercation with the chair umpire.
Yes.
After Laura Sigmund was using all of the tricks in the bag. I mean, goodness me, going deep into the bag in terms of trying to get under the skin and do the match play, the gamesmanships, all this sort of stuff. And it certainly rattled Gauff. It really did, to the point where you don't really see this in terms of how much she was berating the chair umpire. Wasn't a great look, although I have to say completely understandable what was happening on the other side of the court.
Extremely frustrating to watch as a fan, and I totally get the reason for the outburst, but I also have a lot of respect for Laura Sigmund employing the dark arts and trying to scam her way into a huge upset, because you got to do what you got to do. You're playing the 6th seed. You're playing a heavy favorite. The crowd all hates you already, so why not?
I think Gauff has looked fairly okay so far. It's been a bit of a rocky few days, hasn't it?
Yeah. I thought the Andreeva match would be a little trickier, but it wasn't at all. And then she has this really strange match against Elise Mertens that ends with a bagel. So I can't really confidently say where I think she's at, but she'll be full value. If she does end up making that run, Simon, she will be full value for it, because the road forward only gets harder from here. So
yes, to quote Hadestown,
Yes. Hades Town, sponsored by Open Era, or reverse, this podcast brought to you by the hit musical Hades Town.
The road to hell, there's a railroad line, indeed. That is the road for Coco Gauff getting all the way to the final here. Has to go through Wozniacki and Swiatek in the next 2 rounds. Again, stranger things have happened. She'll be full value if she gets through that.
Bublik, this was upsetting.
You're not a fan of the quote? I understand the comedy behind it, but
I guess I don't know. Like, the context it can't really redeem him here, right? Like,
no, I don't think so. I mean, Alexander Bublik has said some strange inflammatory things throughout his career. I mean, at the same time, he is also funny in some ways as well. So he, I think, was extremely upset at losing the manner that he did. And this is as much about Dominic Thiem as it is about Alexander Bublik. Thiem getting his first Grand Slam win in a long time. Long time. So really lovely to see.
He had to retire, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So to illustrate the road back, sadly.
Which was sad because I think that first set between him and Ben Shelton was shaping up to be really, really exciting. But the quote from Alexander Bublik, "I am fucking sick of getting all these disabled people back in their career." It's certainly not great. If this was like 1980, you would find that more funny than perhaps it is in 2023.
And like you said, like, he has especially in Russian, I saw, I think it was on Reddit, a post translating some of his other comments, and he's said some pretty horrible stuff before in Russian. So I think this is not really surprising, but when you're at a slam, I think obviously there's more media, and things like this matter. And I mean, it's ableist. I bet it's horrible to hear if you're a part of that community, because it's being used as a diss, like he's using it here. I guess the context is that he lost to Monfils and Wawrinka Bush, so he's basically saying he's giving new life to these journeymen, but with all due respect, and maybe not enough respect or no respect at all to Alexander Bublik, those guys are far better players than he ever was or ever has been. So I think this is a bit much. You can include Dominic Thiem in that as well.
I would agree with that. Let's move on and touch upon perhaps the biggest shock perhaps of the week in Elena Rybakina losing to Sonia Kristea. No winners in this, Dev. No winners.
No. It's Kristea QAnon or a QAnon adjacent? I haven't been keeping track, but I have been informed, mostly thanks to our Discord, of her recent views and whereabouts. And it's not great stuff, Simon. But you know who can stop this? It's your girl, BB, Belinda Bencic.
Always comes back to that, does it not?
I thought that match was pretty nutso, and when Rybakina won the tiebreak, I felt good about things, but little did I know it was all not safe.
It was all a conspiracy. That's what it was.
Yeah, I mean, check out Kristea's IG stories for more on the.
What else can we do? Injection of pace into the rally. Come on, there's got to be more. It's tough at the top of my head. Bad loss for Rybakina here, Dev. I think. In a weird week as well. She got the walkover in round 2 in a match I think a lot of people were looking forward to against Tomljanovic. She looked great in round 1 as well.
Half the tournament has COVID. But
indeed, yeah.
Basically, based on these walkovers.
Although, don't explain that to Kristea.
Yeah, also true. Also true as well. Just a tough summer, right? I don't think things ever really got on track for Elena Rybakina this summer. And we saw it in Montreal with the timing issues and the janky scheduling, and obviously there's been some ailments that we maybe don't know the full story behind. So yeah, kind of a lost summer.
Jess Pegula had some interesting quotes, still in all 3 disciplines, I believe, at time of speaking. This may change very soon.
The hardest working billionaire you know.
Absolutely.
Simon. The most meritorious billionaire you know. Is this fair?
Absolutely. It's a meritocracy.
In terms of earning.
Absolutely. Yeah. We just don't want it enough. That's the problem.
It's true.
When asked about this during the course of the week, she was an interesting quote Jess Pegula. I honestly think it's harder on the Challenger Tour. Everyone on the Challenger Tour wants to win so bad. I just thought this was a fascinating quote.
She's a great interview, to be honest. I like listening to her talk about the sport. And yeah, I mean, I guess it's a different vibe. And I think if you talk to some of the people who follow the Challenger Tour a lot, and like the lower levels, and the insight they have on these players and the ability to kind of tell us what they're all about is so knowledge heavy based on, I think, what they saw in the Challengers, because it gives them maybe a better idea of what that player is actually about. And maybe there's something real or quote unquote TM trademarking that about the Challenger Tour than there is about the glitz and the glam of your Infosys sponsored by Hologic WTA Tour.
You heard it here first, everyone. Don't watch the tour. Watch the Challenger Tour instead.
If you're a true tennis head, as they say, and hanging out at cool events in New York this week, yeah, probably.
Speaking of, and let's transition, talking of a real one here, Dev, how much stuff has Daniil Medvedev had to say during the course of the week? He's had himself...
He's killing it. He's evolving before our eyes.
He's had himself a journey as well, has he not? From the open admission of the Rainbow Six ambassadorship that we only hinted at previously into him, I think turning into a crowd favorite with his interviews and the way that he's conducting himself and holding himself.
He's developing his material is what he's doing. He's not resting on his laurels. He's getting into the lab to cook, so to speak, and generate some new lines. I thought he was on fire with some of his lines.
Do you think at the Edinburgh Fringe, Daniil Medvedev could do a tight 6 to 7 minutes?
I think so.
He could.
I think so. I definitely think so. I think he could write a better episode of the IT Crowd than Graham Linehan. I tell you that. So I would hope so. Is the Rainbow Six thing real? Because I've never seen a perfect marriage between someone and a game than this exact one, because he might as well be a character in that game.
That's so good if he is. I believe it is correct. I believe it is accurate.
That's awesome. I did read something about him talking about him liking the game and playing, which I want to really know what his rig setup would be like. Like, is it a gaming laptop? It's got to be.
If he's taking it on the tour with him, it has to be a gaming laptop, unless he's somehow managing to carry his PS5.
Have you seen that photo of wrestler AJ Styles on a bullet train in Japan with I bet you they have these modified carry cases as well, though, with systems.
Good idea. You didn't think you were going to get an AJ Styles reference on this podcast, but there you go.
Perfect. I also, when I traveled with Toronto FC, when I worked with them, players used to bring systems with them on the carry-on. So in case you're wondering, because I know I was.
Daniil Medvedev has looked fantastic so far during the course of the week.
You were right. I want to give you your flowers before he inevitably loses shockingly in the next round. But he has looked great, and he played a really strange match with ADM, the Demon in Toronto. I'm very curious to see how that one goes, because the Demon looks excellent again, and he's had a great summer.
Just the best out of the bunch. I mean, he's had so much happen during the course of the week with different quotes, but the doctor one was the best by a significant margin. Yeah. Do you have symptoms? Yeah, I lost the set. Give me whatever you gave him. So good. And get him to the Edinburgh Fringe. That's what I'm saying here.
Yeah. Let's wrap this segment up with Holger Rune Bush splitting with Patrick Bortoglu, but getting his mom to do it, which is the classic getting your mom to phone your friend saying you can't come over because you're tired or you're sick, but you don't want to do it.
This is one where you'd love to be a fly on the wall to know what this relationship was like and all parties involved, just given that everyone has there's been a bit of spice to it, right? There's been a bit of passive aggressiveness amongst all of these messages that are being sent back and forward, and people not wanting to be, ruin relationships openly in public, but at the same time kind of still wanting to get a bit of needle in with each person. The truth of everything else is, the proof of the pudding here is that Holger Rune got dumped out in the first round again. It's not been a good summer for him at all, despite being the world number 4. This relationship surely looks like it's ran its course, and I mean, literally has done at this point, but just given the way that everything unfolded here and some of the quotes that we saw, it feels like this one been on thin ice for quite a while.
Thought it was interesting. I make light of his mom making this statement, but I do think it's interesting when she says the team that worked during the clay season isn't working now. So perhaps it's an ego clash. They need to find a new solution. So I mean, in one sense, I kind of admire the ability or willingness to be like, we got to change this. It's not working. He had been having a good year, Simon, before this hardcore swing, but P-Mort, man, the luster, I guess it's still there. It'll never really go away. But I guess you have to consider there's a few options players have these days. And I wonder if any of the shine on him has changed after the Simona Halep situation, in which I did see Darren Cahill talking about that as well this week.
Yeah, Pimo's running out of juice, isn't he? And come on, it's a good joke, people. Stay with me.
That's the one Halep update, by the way. She's facing another doping ban hearing delay. So that day in court she's been looking for has now been delayed again, it looks like. And I think Darren Cahill was voicing his displeasure with that and saying, once again, the truth will come out. So we'll see what happens there. Quickly, Bush, before we take the break, you got two quick ones.
Yeah, there was history made for Chinese female tennis or women's tennis, seeing two women through to the round of 16. It's the first time it's ever happened in the main draw, which is fantastic to see. I could have sworn this had happened previously, but no, It has not. It's brand new first time this has happened. And then final one, just to quickly wrap up here, the exploits and adventures of Rinky, Gojo, and Stricker, which is the best legal counsel you'll possibly find, Dev. So good to see all three of these dudes making it into the fourth round. I don't know that we're going to see any of them getting any further, but all three have good personalities and they're fun to watch on court.
All qualifiers as well. I guess Rinky was a wild card, so it's less, still very formidable, but awesome story. I had to apologize to Dominic Stricker. I think I said in the Discord he had a punchable face, but then I saw him singing I Want to Dance with Somebody by Whitney Houston. So all credit to the new Swiss maestro, Dominic Stricker. Also, Gojo, there's got to be some Succession jokes there, right? Gojo playing Novak Djokovic. Come on. Anyone? All right.
I have never seen Succession, Dev, so
yeah, I figured as much. I figured as much. All right. Quickly moving on. When we come back after the break, it's Parting Shots on the Open Air Podcast.
Welcome back to the Open Air Podcast. Devang, Parting Shots time. Let's start with the founder of Parting Shots, the bedrock, the foundation of Parting Shots, Casper Ruud.
The GOAT.
The GOAT, indeed. And he had some choice quotes for the online tennis community. I'm going to read out the entire quote.
Shots fired at mom's basements everywhere.
Absolutely. I'll read out the start and end of it just to give a bit of flavor to the spice that Casper Ruud approached this with. I read a bunch of these so-called tennis experts and their opinion. It's just insane. It annoys me in a way because I feel like you haven't played professionally in the past. Most of them have no clue what they're talking about. For fans, if anyone listens to what I'm saying, I just not take more than 5% of what so-called tennis experts on Twitter have to say as good info, because that's not the way it goes. And then he wraps us up by saying, but it can be dangerous to spend too much time there. First and foremost, Dev, shots fired at the tennis podcast, is it not?
Was this in reference to something specific, or was it just a state of the tennis Twitter discourse, in his opinion?
I think this was just like him crashing out, right? And sort of just being upset with everything.
The sad part is, this is the worst person you know made a good point comment, the Onion article. But in some ways, this is funny to me because maybe this is why Casper weights his dad's advice so heavily, because his dad did play. So he does have that ability to question him, as opposed to the rest of us who can't say anything because we're mere mortals, Simon, who never played on the tour. It's hard to disagree with him calling out people for talking shit on Twitter, because that is basically what's going on. Like, I don't necessarily see anything wrong with this comment at all, but also, damn, Casper, that hurts my feelings.
Also, just get off Twitter.
Yeah. Well, the fact is, he is really off-brand curious in some ways, right? Because he's trying to challenge people, and I think he's, I don't even know if I want to say he has better intentions, but like, he's coming from a slightly less shit posting place than Kyrgios is, but he's just bland. So it's like really, man, like, do something else. Why are you doing this?
I'd be fascinated to know, with all of the things that are available to players now, with all the coaching and everything that's happened to sort of prioritize mental health in the game, to a certain extent. I mean, it's definitely not a blanket statement, but surely someone in the camp has got to be telling him, like, just delete that fucking app off your phone, dude. Like, stop looking at it.
Just don't look. Yeah. But I mean, you want to see what's being said about you too. That's the curse. The curse of being a public figure, perhaps, is that he wants to know this, right? So he's just like us. Ha! Take that, Casper. You are just like us. You're stuck in here forever.
Wonderful. That's all you want to transition to the next story with. Simon Briggs writing in the Tory graph, to give it its full
got
name.
him. Got him.
The headline: Men's and Women's Tennis Tour to discuss game-changing merger. They left the subhead is where the spice is, though. Exclusive. A meeting has been arranged for later this month in an attempt to starve off a potential Saudi takeover of the sport. I have to say here, Dev, I had not really heard anything about this until I started reading into this, and this is why an exclusive, quote unquote, is, but I had not heard any rumblings of this, and anything to do with the Saudis potentially getting involved from a potential, tour or anything to do with it was complete and utter bollocks on my behalf and just educated guesses. So to see it actually written up in a formal outlet, despite one as failing as the Telegraph.
Okay. I love those stakes. I raised 3 eyebrows for the story, which is quite a few eyebrows. If you're familiar with my eyebrow game. This sounds like also perhaps there's been some whispering, or maybe he's putting it out there. The author is that the Saudis could approach the PTPA for this breakaway tour, which is fascinating on a number of levels, because you could get a live golf type situation going here. But this does feel like maybe they're racing to cover their asses after Fed said they should have done this 3 years ago.
This is about to get, I think this story across the board is about to get very, very accelerated.
Yeah, I think so. But also I think it makes sense for them to get their things together when this takeover offer does come, because it's going to come. This is what they all know. Yeah.
And we saw Baseline being rolled out last week. I'd be very
unrelated, totally unrelated. What are you talking about?
Totally unrelated. Yeah, nothing to do with this. I mean, in some ways, it's good to see. Like, the PTBA is kind of doing its job here.
Right?
It's providing pressure.
Yeah.
It's providing the governing body. I can't think of a better word than pressure, right? It's providing a platform for people to talk, and a power structure where the people in charge of the sport have to start doing something. I would be massively in favor of seeing Baseline run the WTA as well, and that program to be expanded. And hopefully we start to see that happening in the next year or so. But this is going to get really quickly, Dev, isn't it?
Also in the story, they mentioned that the men's players may be protective over prize money. And I wonder if there is some potential for this to break down, or a deal not to be hammered out, or one of these tours to decide to go with the Saudis alone, if it does come down to that. Because already, I don't know if you've noticed, but the Chuds are out with their takes on why it should continue to be unequal.
Love it.
Yeah.
They will never go away, Devang.
They never will. No.
I guess we can. Well, I will say this. I'm not going to speak for you, but you can by and large ignore those people because they just hate women. I think that is that is a reasonable position to take on this. Let's talk about gender parity and in terms of prize money, because it's very high profile. It's on the court literally during the course of this US Open, celebrating 50 years of equal prize money at the US Open. Maria Sharapova was talking during the course of the week at the Gender Equity Sports Conference, which I must admit, shame on me, legitimately shame on me for not knowing what that was. But Sharapova quoted as saying, 15 to 20% of the tour is equal, but where's the rest of the 80%? It's not even close to being equal. Unfortunately, those events don't have the biggest media rights. They don't have the visibility. So that subject of equality doesn't even get a platform, because not too many people know internationally these tournaments exist. And you know what? She's kind of right, Dev. She's correct on this.
Maria Sharapova, good? I think.
No. We're not going to go that far. Certainly not. But this issue, certainly she's correct.
I got Sharapova washed, so now I forgive all the faults in the past. No. Yeah, and I think that it's fascinating because once again, like this argument has brought together some interesting people that I probably don't necessarily like or agree with in a lot of things together in agreement, and where I'm like, yeah, they're on the right track. And even the PTPA, in which I think there's some parts about it that I'm like, they're like, oh, like they're doing this strangely. I think generally, I think the players had to organize or should have organized or have to make inroads to organize to protect themselves going forward. But yeah, I mean, this is totally weighing on, and it's why they had to introduce this baseline thing in the ATP. It's why the actual health of the sport is perilous because, I mean, outside of the people who are in that top 10, that top percentage that Sharapova mentions, you're kind of on your own, and it's one injury. You're one injury away from being really in a bad situation.
Pay them all the exact same thing.
Really? Like that's just do it. Once again, what if it's the Saudis though? Like, are we cool? Is
Cross that
cool
bridge
then?
when we come to it. You know,
It's coming. It's right there. It's in front of you, Simon. In front of you, in the windshield. Objects appear closer than they are.
It's true. You know, the Mr. Burns and Homer when they're in the snow cabin together, where it's strange bedfellows, that kind of thing, and winking, oh God, is he coming on to me kind of thing. Sometimes in labor, you find yourself in bed with strange people that you would not normally be associated with. The same thing is true here as well, is that you do have more in common than you do set apart when it comes to your rights and your ability to earn a living, especially when it comes to the vast, vast majority of players in sport of tennis.
We talked about Billie Jean King recently, the last couple of weeks, and how she's maybe aligning herself with some less than reputable people, or like people we don't like. And how that feels. But VJK knows business, Push. And I think in some ways this is about business as well.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately screw the business world. It responds the other, like business comes last as far as I'm concerned. You set up good parameters and good systems and everything and everyone's happy, then business will thrive, not the other way around. Like as far as I'm concerned. In fact, literally, I believe every single textbook would say that across the history of time. Or no, maybe not textbook, but at least like history would indicate that. Let's transition to Fiona Crawley. This was both a sad condemnation of where tennis is at and also just the ridiculousness and also a good opportunity for us to take another shot at the NCAA. So she had to forfeit almost 82 grand, 81,500 in prize money in order to keep her eligibility to play at the NCAA level. I worked my butt off this week, yet I can't take the money that I work so hard for. Dev, once again, this is not the Sport Chronicle, but just for one night only, fuck the NCAA.
Yeah. I find it, I didn't realize that this is still a thing because I thought with NIL and the idea that now players can get paid for their likeness, that it was a moot point. But little did I know I'm an idiot because, of course, this stupidity still exists. Yeah, I mean, it's just, frankly, it's stupid. It's very, very stupid. I don't have much more on that.
Okay. Ballgate is real, Dev. It's not just tinfoil hat territory for me anymore. We've had someone who doesn't believe in any sort of conspiracy theories at all, Vasek Pospisil, getting in spoken on this one.
Oh my God.
Quote, if these changes to the balls don't start getting reversed, it's only going to get worse. It's killing our bodies. This is actually kind of interesting to see it play out, especially someone who is so prominent at the head of the PTPA, to the point where I start to wonder whether or not we are going to start seeing some pressure on the rules as well. And I guess that's where the power dynamics come, not just from a prize money and from an equity standpoint, but from some things which clearly have gotten under the players' skin from a governance perspective as well. And it would be fascinating to see if that starts to trickle out over the next year as well.
This is once again a situation where I don't think I often agree with Vasek about stuff, but I think I'm totally on board with this. This is bang on. It's 100% right. We've talked about it at length over the years, Simon, a ton of times. The game is getting slower. Longer matches are good. These epics are good for the game business, as you love so much, the dreaded B word. The fact that you have like Marty Fish backing this up again, once again, you don't have to love these people to be like, yes, this makes a lot of sense. I saw in that thread as well, someone saying that Leander Pace kept a can of balls from all of his slam finals and weighed them all afterwards, and they were getting heavier and heavier.
This is the kind of, they did the math level of.
It's just from even the eye test, though, from what we've seen over the years, where is the lie? Like, where is the lie? Is it also strings as well, though?
Sure, absolutely. Let's go full hog on it. No lie was told here, Dev.
We need the tennis nerd back on here to break it down. But it feels very true. And I mean, the injuries speak for themselves, right? So I think Vasek is bang on.
Look, I can't be the only one that's standing in the corner of SW19 every single season with a sign saying, someone fix these fucking tennis balls. So
fix the balls.
Please.
Fix the balls.
Please, someone fix the balls.
Just came in. Fix the balls. Just missed as our episode.
Fix the balls. We're changing tracks quickly. Dev, John Isner's retired. It's happened in a emotional experience.
Dill, can we play Vitamin C's graduation underneath this next part? Just to commemorate the career of John Isner.
Do you have anything you want to say about John Isner, or should we move on?
I will say, and I think I saw this a few places, including our own Discord, but like, you can hate on John Isner, and God knows I have many and many a time, and I took great joy in it. You can hate on that and also be like, damn, that serve was insane and ridiculous, and that second serve simply slapped, and it wasn't just because he was a tall guy. So I mean, I don't have much love for him at all, but I will say that serve certainly went and had crazy gas on it, Bush. So I choose to say something positive as we end. Also, the Fila kit was really strong. I love the gear that they had.
Good Lord, what has happened to you, man?
I know. I'm trying to change, man. I'm trying to change. I saw people burying him when he retired. And then I saw other people defending him, and it brought out even the worst people. So I don't know. I've said all I need to say about John Isner. That's probably it.
Does he find a place in a second Trump White House? Question mark.
Okay, honestly, maybe. I'd say at least 40%, but looking at some of the chuds they've brought in before, would he even be that bad? Would he be the worst they could do? At least he's gone to places. He's gone to other countries.
What is John Isner? More qualified than some of the other people. The Secretary of Agriculture? Sure, let's give him that. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well.
UN ambassador is probably what we're looking at.
Seems right? Reasonable.
UN ambassador.
Secretary of Defense. Daria Katsakina gave a couple of interviews during the course of the week, and one of the most prominent ones was her stating how that she would be more than happy to play under the rainbow flag, the pride flag, instead of her native country, of course, which is banned. Dev, this was nice to see. She once again continues to be the heart and soul of the tour. I think perhaps the person that I would feel most comfortable with if ever she ascended to a position of leadership and power within the sport. Good wins and another W for Katsakina. A common W.
Yeah, and I saw her match with Greet Minin. Apparently, I'm not sure if this is fact-checked or not, but this was the first match between two openly gay players in a Grand Slam. So that's pretty cool. I feel like the Ons Jabeur Katsakina friendship as well is quite underrated. I mean, everyone loves Ons, but that here's a question I'll lob back your way, Simon, after getting a week in and we're closer towards the end. If Sabalenka and Ons Jabeur played right now, who do you have winning that match?
Sabalenka.
Yeah. Ons looked, I mean, the Buzkova match was weird and Buzkova was hurt and Ons has been struggling with who knows what it is. I mean, she said COVID's going around, but I think for Sabalenka, Katsakina is a bigger red flag right now than Ons Jabeur, so she should not be looking ahead at all.
Agreed. For all the money in the world, it looks like Sabalenka has to make a deep run here. She looks fairly invincible at the moment. But that being said, things have the Anya Sabalenka experience has not exactly been smooth sailing, but she has absolutely dominated at the time of recording through her first 3 rounds.
Agreed. Finally. Strict boy.
Strict boy indeed. You mentioned it in segment 1. He was caught singing in his win over Stefanos Tsitsipas, the ultimate middle finger towards Steph. He was singing Whitney Houston during the changeover of ends, which led me to ask the question to you, Devang. Which song being played over the PA system would break your concentration and would break you out of being in a flow?
Well, for me, any song, basically. You could basically play anything and I'll be like, oh, I love this track. But I don't know. Like, I feel like I could get into Len's Steal My Sunshine pretty aggressively during a changeover. Any of early Coldplay's hits. Yeah, I honestly, basically, I would sing to anything. I'm impressed, though. I mean, how old is Dominic Stricker? Bush? Like, that's not necessarily in his wheelhouse as a 21-year-old. So he must have some cool older siblings or parents.
Surely that song and Whitney Houston has done the rounds on TikTok.
Oh,
surely,
yeah. That's also true, actually. Good point. Steph Tsitsipas, Bush, washed, cooked, everything. He cut his friendship or his coaching relationship with Mark Philippoussis is over again for some reason.
Again?
Yeah, I think
Third
so.
time?
I think so. What's going on here, man? He has looked bad.
This is like some Italian football team manager levels of firing a coach.
Coaching. The same managers come back 5. Yeah, he's in his Empoli era, his Serie A era. But yeah, that was upsetting. Just the Stricker, though. He somehow found a way to be more annoying than Steph to me in that match. But he's looked like he's won the right to get cooked by Taylor Fritz quickly because he's played a lot of tennis the last 2 rounds. That's my sad prediction.
I do think it is reasonable to say that he has like the punchable face thing to him.
I know. It's unfair, but also, I'm sorry.
It's not a kind thing to say, but it's.
Can I ask Bush after this first week though? Have your predictions changed at all? Are you where are you leaning right now?
I don't think it actually has changed. The only thing that I think slightly changed it is the health of everyone, seeing as everyone
seems to be some horrible bug.
Everyone has COVID or the flu or something
Super
to
COVID.
destroy half of the tour. But I don't think so. Iga's looked great, adding yet another bagel to the bakery. I think Charlie's looked fantastic as well. Novak Djokovic obviously coming back from 2 sets to love down in that match against Laszlo Djere. But, I think Djere played fantastically. I think all the things are going to be said about the fitness of Novak Djokovic and how he looked through those first 2 sets, but full credits of the performance that Djere put in, and he kind of lost belief and steam by the end of that match. But I guess to answer your question, I would be very surprised if either Sabalenka or Swiatek is not at the back end of this tournament, and the same thing is true with both Alcaraz and with Novak Djokovic. The Sinner's looking good as well, though. I think if we get that quarterfinal, I'd be very, very interested to see who comes out on top, to see whether or not Sinner can conquer his demons at a Grand Slam level. But all being said, still feels like chalk to me.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I want to see what Coco can do here towards the end. I know she beat Iga in Cincinnati, but it's a different story at a slam. And I think there's going to be some stuff mentally that she'll have to overcome on the biggest stage. But that's going to be very fascinating and worth paying attention to. And also, Jess Pegula, I mean, love her or hate her, she is grinding, man. Like she's once again in the conversation towards the end of a big tournament. Also, I saw Borna Gojo against Canada in Davis Cup briefly last year or 2 years ago. I cannot remember exactly, but he's a big dude. He's probably not going to beat Novak, but there'll be bombs.
God, such a great name as well.
Borna Gojo. All right. 2 challengers remaining, Simon. What do you got?
One of my 2 challenges remaining was continuing to listen to the Hadestown soundtrack. It is really, really fantastic. And then on the flip side of it, I guess I don't think I've ever done this one before, but I think it is a cool shout out to say the Not Just Spikes YouTube channel. I've always enjoyed the content being produced over there, and despite him being, I think, somewhat of an asshole, I get the sense, but at the same time, his content is incredibly useful and very, I think, validating for the space that you live in and trying to see a better version of the world around you. So that would be my shout out this week.
Oh, wonderful. I was kind of going back and forth. I saw the Arctic Monkeys on Friday, Simon, band I've loved for a long time. I don't know. I had a good time, but it also felt like the end of a chapter a bit for me as a person, because the crowd was way younger than I thought it would be, and I felt significantly washed, Simon, as I watched this band and I watched Alex Turner do his crooner thing, and I was like, okay, this is probably it for me. But nonetheless, I'm glad I experienced it.
So I've seen the Arctic Monkeys in both the UK and in Canada multiple times. And it's one of those things that I have never felt more of my own age watching the Arctic Monkeys in the United Kingdom, and have never felt less of my age than watching it in Canada. It's a bizarre thing.
Are they older in the UK then? Like the crowd's older? Yeah,
I mean, it's people that are around my age or slightly older.
It's fast. I don't get it, because like the younger kids have came on during this crooner phase, in which is not exactly the fastest music, right? Like it's
but at the same time, remember, like 16-year-olds are wearing fucking Crocs. So
cargo pants, man. They're back. They're back, baby. What do we
comes
know?
with the territory sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great time, and the CNE is going on as well, so we had a great time doing that kind of stuff beforehand. But yeah, maybe the end of an era this weekend.
I bet you looked good on the dance floor, though.
Thank you, sir, and thank you to John Isner for an incredible career. We're gonna miss you, John. We're gonna miss you so much.
Couldn't believe that Alex Turner shouted out.
It was shocking. I definitely didn't see it coming, but when they dedicated Teddy Picker to John Isner, I think a tear went down my face. All right, we'll leave it there. A reminder, we are on patreon.com/open era. Join us there, get the show ad free, get the show early on Sundays, plus join us on the Discord where we're chatting tennis all the time. And there's some questions in our Discord about our show recording schedule. We'll be back on Sunday next week as well to wrap up the US Open. So have no fear about that. Maybe based on the timing, we'll see actually when that comes out. But yeah, when we get to less big tournaments, we'll probably go to more of a midweekly record, but we'll keep you guys posted about that. Join us on the Patreon so you can keep apprised of all of those updates. And I think that's it for producer Dylan on the ones and twos, and for Simon. Thank you so much for listening to Open Era. We'll talk to you next week.